So yeah, guys, as we designed a UI for the To-Do app, this is the design. So we are going to develop this in React.js. So we are using TypeScript. So we are actually using React.js with TypeScript. This is a UI that we have finalized. I have added some things in there. So a simple overlay to add a new task. So yeah, what is React? So React is a kind of JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So it's make the effort simple, and it gives you encapsulation and features and all. So we are going to use another library called Next.js. So which is basically also a React framework for production. So this is built upon React. So using React, it is built. So it has some advantages like image optimization and so and so. So the main advantage of using Next.js is like it gives you a feature called client-side rendering and server-side rendering. So client-side rendering is kind of rendering the HTML page on the client system or mobile device, whichever device he is using. So when you come to server-side rendering, the page will be rendered in the server, and an HTML document will be only sent to the client. So there is a difference between both. So the time takes to load the page in server-side rendering is much lesser. So yeah, developers are like migrating to using server-side rendering. So there is no point in implementing server-side rendering for a single page applications, or like for a portfolio kind of pages. There is no point since it is a single page. So you can like use server-side rendering for a big web app applications, like it contains multiple pages, multiple routes, and so like that. So the first, let us set up environment for developing our site. So you need something called package managers. So if you are new to this, you have to install Node to support this, or this will like incorporate npm package manager with it. So once you install it, you will get npm in your system. I would recommend you to use yarn. So yarn is also a package manager. So the difference, the npm stands for node package manager, yarn stands for yet another package manager. So it's like npm is the disadvantage is npm creates massive output logs of its commands. So it's essentially it's like a dump of stack trace of what npm is doing. So it's like yarn outputs logs are very clean, and it's like it is distinguishable and brief. So npm also fetches dependencies from the npm registry during every npm install command. So whenever you type npm install some dependency, then it just goes to the excuse me, to its servers and then fetches the data and install it in a computer. But in case of yarn, it store the dependencies locally, and it simply fetches it to your project. So it's like much faster version of npm. So first, open your terminal. If you have Windows 11, just right click on the folder that you want to create the project, and then select the option Windows PowerShell. I am using a terminal called Git Bash, which is like pre-installed if you have Git software. So I'm just navigating to the folder that I want to create the project. So the command for creating the Next.js project is, once you install yarn, so there are different ways to install yarn. If you have npm already installed, you can install yarn using this, or you don't have node.js and npm stuff, you can just download the installer here and then install it in your system. So once the yarn installation is complete, you open your terminal and then go to your directory that you want to create a project, and then type this command yarn create next app. That means we are creating a Next.js app. So then you have to specify the project name. So let's say we have to do app. So next since we are using TypeScript with it, you have to specify this specific phrase in it, double dash dash example with TypeScript. So what it does is it actually creates a project with the TypeScript. So if you doesn't use this example dash dash example with TypeScript, it creates a Next.js app, but with only with JavaScript. So if you are comfortable working with JavaScript, then ignore this phrase and then create the project. So it just goes on downloading some stuff from internet and dependencies. Usually it will take like 40 to 30 seconds. So once it's downloaded, let's open our IDE. So the command for opening VS Code is code space and then the directory. So our directory is to do app. This opens VS Code. So I would excuse me, I would recommend you to use VS Code for like web development. So it has better TypeScript compatibility. VS Code is indeed written with TypeScript, so it's like very compatible with TypeScript. So the first we have to like install some extensions in VS Code. So if you go here extensions, so you have to install these extensions: auto import, auto rename tag, so bracket pair colorizer, and yeah, and prettier if you want to. It makes your code cleaner. This one. So auto import is like for auto importing the components that you're writing. It's like it reduces the dev time. And auto rename tag is like when you rename the parent tag, it automatically changes the closing tag. So it is very useful tool for web developers. So first install these three extensions. HTML and TypeScript support is inbuilt in VS Code, so you no need to install anything separate for that. So this is our basic project structure here. So let's run this app. So yeah, let's navigate to that project page. And then the command for running this is yarn space dev. So what it does is it creates a development server. So what I meant by development server is like it is used by the developers to like see the output. So it is just for the development. It is hosted in your local host. As you can see, it's just hosted in my local host. So it is not like you can't access it from other than my computer or in my network. So once it's hosted completely completed, let's go to localhost. So try using incognito while uh, accessing the server, localhost server, because it's sometimes Chrome catches your like data, and then if you are working with two or more projects, it just shows the values or images from the previous projects. So try using incognito so that it doesn't catch up your old projects, files, stuff and all. So once you created it, you need some tools called React Developer Tools. So simply search React Developer Tools and it will, the first link, and it will get you to this React Developer Tools Chrome extension. So install this on your system, on your Chrome browser. So it's like it is used to like check states and components in real time. So this tool, we will be using this tool very often. So these are the things that you have to set up before you're going to develop. Yeah, this is the basic. This is like a boilerplate code they are already have here. So they have some pages here about and user list, user API kind. They have like they have implemented routing. So we don't want all this kind of stuffs here. So let's say we first thing we have to like clean up this project structure. So the next folder is from Next.js, so you don't have to change anything in that. And the components folder is for adding your components inside it. So whatever components your project has that has to be defined within the components folder. So we don't want any components that is listed here now. So let's delete these components. The next folder is interface. So what interface folder contains is interfaces. Since in the last class I explained interfaces and types, this file purely consists of the interfaces and types that you are going to use in your project throughout the project. So every interfaces types that you should be defining it in here and then importing it from here. So you should not rename this to any other name. So it should be index.ts. So yeah, the next folder is node modules. So these are the dependencies for the node and the JavaScripts to run. So you should not change anything in here. And the next thing is pages. So pages contains all the pages in your web project. So this API folder and all you don't need for now. Let's just delete it. And what it does is, like, let's say if this is Next.js handles routing in a different way. So if I create and page called, let's say, collection.tsx, then there will be a new route in here. So it says an error because we have deleted. Let's delete all, clean this stuff up, and then, so you don't want this predefined stuff here in the index.js. So let's return something, return a fragment. So a fragment is a nothing but it's similar to a div, but it's kind of an empty div. So it has nothing inside it for now. So yeah, in an index page is kind of the home page for it's kind of an entry point for the web app. So you should not also change this name to any other name. So this is default thing. This is the home page. Whatever the contents that you are going to write for a home page should be written inside it. So yeah, this shows an error because we are using parentheses here. Yeah, let's say this works. Let's say if this works. So yeah, once you save this once you made the changes and save the component that you're working, the compiler will be the server will be automatically compiling it and just post the changes to the browser. So you no need to like compile again and again or kind of stuff. The compiler will be running in an infinite loop. Whenever you make changes and just save it, rest of the things the compiler will take care. So yeah, now we have just cleaned our page. So Next.js comes with like inbuilt CSS facilities. So you can use any types of CSS like Sass. You can also use Tailwind in here. So it has CSS support. So yeah, the pages, like if let's say if I create a new file under pages called contact.tsx. So I am returning a arrow function contact, returning a value called h1. So what it does is it creates a new route called contact. So you can see that the value is changed here. I have passed an h1 tag with the value contact. So it just replaced it. So the page is replaced here. Instead of index.tsx, once I entered into /contact, it going to a different page called contact.tss and displaying its content there. So let's say we have a p tag. So yeah, this is how routing in Next.js works. Since we are like as in UI, since we are developing a single page, we don't need routing at this point. So yeah, the next folder is like utils. So what utils does is like it contains the data files that you wanted to use in your page. So data files in the sense uh, like for like this. So let's say you have some set of users, or let's say you have some set of phone numbers that you're going to use in your footer. If you see in Swiggy web page and all, in footer they will be having some list of countries and some their supporting numbers and all stuff. So you can store it in here in an object and then export it from here and then import from some other component and use it there. So it's like giving like encapsulation. So yeah, you can use if you have any like this much number of objects or data stuff that you are going to use in your project, you can very well declare and initialize it in here, and you can use it. You can have had two or more, like whatever number of data files you want, you can add in here. So you can change the name as you want. So there is no restrictions in here. So the next thing is git ignore. If you are using git, then git ignore is like what are the files that you don't want to include in git. So yeah, that's you nothing much going on here. And the next thing is next environment d.ts. This file contains environmental variable stuff. So when you reach advanced front-end development stuff, there will be like you have to handle some tokens and session details and kind of stuff. So for that, the tokens and the encryption passcode and secret key will be stored in here. So for that purpose, you will using this file. So the package.json is for like the scripts that you are going to use, the dependencies that are going to use in here, that is defined in here. So readme is nothing much. tsconfig.json. So in the previous session, while I explaining TypeScript, I said you can alter the TypeScript compiler to give different output. So as you can see here, the target is ES5. So if I like change this ES6, you can get the latest of JavaScript here, or ES1, you can target old browsers. So here you no need to like change anything, but the property strict is like an important property. If you want to write a pure TypeScript code, then enable it as true. So it simply doesn't allow you to write any simple JavaScript here once you enable it into true. So allow JavaScript is also a kind of same thing. If you like toggle it to false, then it doesn't allow you to write any simple JavaScript. So make sure it just become true and the strict as false. So and you're good to go. The yarn lag is something a package manager has to do with, so there is nothing much you can do there. So don't save this thing. So yeah, let's get a look on the UI first. So we have a single page which has like kind of a two sections. So the first section is kind of a nav bar in the left side, which is like probably at 20%, occupying 20% of the whole viewport, and then the rest is like and then the rest the main content is showed. So we have to include CSS to do this some stuff. So in Next.js, for including CSS, you have to like add a component in pages called app.tsx. So the difference between TS and TSX is that TS is like kind of a normal TypeScript file. So TSX is kind of HTML like syntax, so that you can use it with React. So make it easier and like to create React components. So the only purpose is to make it easier to create React components. So there is nothing much going on there. So without TSX, you will be like creating large nested HTML documents using TS syntaxes, which is actually JavaScript. So ultimately, TypeScript file is going to compile into JavaScript. So you're going to like nesting large number of HTML documents inside one another and end up in like creating a large file. So which is like more complex. So TSS file makes this process easier. So first you have to, for adding CSS, first you have to create app.tsx file in your pages structure, inside your pages structure, and then you have to define a function called myApp, which is an arrow function, which returns a fragment. And since you are using TypeScript, as you can see, once I type, it just automatically imports a thing from the React. So yeah, it's a pretty neat feature for that. So the next thing you have to define is component. And we're going to pass page props in here. So the error will go on now. So yeah, this is kind of a boilerplate code. So you will be like using the same code for every React project that you are going to use. This is same for every project. This is just like including CSS in your page. You will be using this like global CSS. So a global CSS file which you can access anywhere in your project. To do that, you are using this my app.tsx, and it has some extra features too. You can add the metadata and meta description. You can do SEO with this once this page is enabled, and you can add favorite icon using this. So yeah, it has some advantages. So the next thing is you should import CSS file here. So for CSS files, you should be creating a folder called styles in the outer branch. Sorry, styles. Okay, now you can add CSS files inside the styles. So this file should be a mandatory file. So base.global.css, you should not rename this. This is a file that has a scope throughout your project. You can call classes from this file from wherever in your project, either in the last child or at the parent, wherever you want. You can call the classes from there. In React, it's a shortcoming. So in React, it's like the scoping is like if you like have a different class, if you have a same class name in different components, it doesn't mean like they are two different classes. They are same. So wherever you define a class in normal React, it has a scope throughout the project. So for components, you can be if you are using that kind of structure, it will like end up some CSS issues. So that's why in Next.js they made it completely modular. So what this stuff, the only CSS file which can be able to access throughout your project is based on global.css. So your basic common CSS classes should be defined in here. So yeah, let's import that base.file in here. So auto import doesn't work for CSS files, unfortunately. You can use auto import for components, TSS and TS files, but not styles. You have to manually type it out. Global.css. So once you import it, let's define some CSS here. So we have root. So I'm just defining my colors, primary. So let's see what color I'm using. So the primary color is 93D8FF and the secondary color X is 006490. Let's D8FF. This is this is kind of a variable in CSS. You can store colors here. So let's copy this color and just paste it in here and add an hashtag. Yeah, and I'm going to import some fonts here. Since in design, if you noticed, I use a font called Poppins. So you can import Poppins from Google Fonts. You like search. It's kind of a CDN, so there is no need that the user that using your web page or seeing your web page has to install this font or something. It just gets from this Google server and adds to your web page directly. So yeah, select all the fonts families and then like select the import tag here. So you will get a big import line here. So just copy it and then paste it in your CSS. So we imported like Google fonts, and the next thing I'm going to do is importing the font awesome. So font awesome is nothing but a page or a library which gives you icons. So you can use icons from them. So it's so simple to import icons from them. So CDN for font awesome is, so if you like, this is a CDN. So copy this URL and then same procedure, import this. So once the fonts and the CDNs are imported here, the next thing is I'm going to define some basic CSS properties for my body. So the margins, as you can see in here, the margin is like some kind of uh, the index page is supposed to be starting here at this very corner. So it's not starting here. There is some margin is set to this index page. So we have to remove all those margins and paddings there. So let's padding 0. What it does is it sets the margins value as 0 on all sides and as well as padding. So and we want the font to be the our custom font that we are going to use, Poppins, and its family is sans serif. So this is the CSS property for altering the font family in CSS in HTML element. So yeah, the next thing, yeah, I think we are done here. Once you have included your app.tsx, you have to restart your compiler. So for terminating the process, press Ctrl C and then just again start the server, yarn dev. So this is a command for starting development server. So it's running. Yeah, once it started successfully, you can see that font is just changed to Poppins. So yeah, the next thing we are going to do is let's create a file for the home page CSX. Let's call it as home.module.css. What it does is like if you have to like prefix this module.css to every CSS file that you are going to create here. So this gives the modularity for the CSS file. You can use these classes to only the components that you are going to import this file. So it adds, let's say I have a class called new head. So what it in building status, in compiling status, Next.js will append a a string value called a random string value like this. So like this and so it will append this class value and then compile it. So there is like no clashing of, if you use the same class name in two different places, there is no like merging or merge conflicts there. So it gives modularity. That's why we are using this type this step, use module.css in here. So yeah, once we define the CSS file, let's get into developing the page. So the first we have a div. Let's say it has a class name. So we have to import the home.module.css here. To do that, I'm just going to add an import statement. Import whatever name you want here, classes or styles or class your wish, from the class name called styles slash home dot module dot css. So that's it. You can like use the classes from the CSS, like calling the classes from object classes dot, let's say new head. If new head has some properties, it will be applied to this HTML element. So the first thing I'm going to have is like, let's say, layout. So first we finish off this HTML side and then let's go to the CSS side. So I'm just creating a next the div inside it. So which is most probably the nav bar, which is on the left side. So the grayish thing. So next, and next we are going to have the main area. Yeah. So yeah, that's for navbar. We have some predefined stuff today, tomorrow, and later. So for this, I'm going to define a data, an object inside this file, sample data.ts, and then I'm going to use it there. So I don't want this stuff anymore. So let's export const. I'm calling it as navbar items, which is type of array. Since we are using TypeScript, you have to give explicitly mention the type of every variable that you are going to define. So it is going to be an array of navbar item type. First, we have to define the interface for that. So let's type navbar item type. So the properties that navbar item type is going to contain is, say we have a ID, which is going to be a type number, and then an icon, which is going to be a string, and then a title, so which is also going to be a string. So yeah, we don't want this user also, so we can remove it. It shows an error because we are not using it. So yeah, once you like press Control and space, it shows you a suggestion to import this interface from the index.ts. So it just automatically imports this for you. Now it's just an array, right? Now you have to define the data that goes inside this. If you again press Control space, it gives you like suggestions like data that you defined in your interface. So let's see. For some reason it's not showing me why. Okay, so there is an E extra in here. So yeah, so icon. So for icon, I'm just going to use a font awesome icon called FA calendar day. So title, as you can see, it shows a suggestion here. So the title will be, so if I have like these many kind of options here, you can have these much of objects in here. You can add it later on. So for now let's have just this one item. So once this is done, save this and this. So let's create a component. So I'm going to treat this as a single component. So first let's create this component. So in components folder, I'm going to create a file called navbar item.tsx. So not ts, it's tsx. So every tsx file should return a single HTML element, That is like the rule of a TSX file. You should remember, you should not return multiple divs or like kind of stuff. So you can like nest multiple divs inside this single div and return it, but not like, let's say we have double divs returning here. So this will like probably end you in error. So you should not allow to, you are not allowed to do this. It should return single thing. So it is a navbar component, item component. So this component contains some stuff, right? So the icon and then the title. So we are like getting the data from the sample.data ts, and then we are going to pass it to this component. For that we are going to handle handle some data inside the component. So we are getting from outside, and then we are using the component, we are doing some rendering inside. So first, for that, we have to define types and interfaces, the props types of this component. So what you are getting from outside is called props. So yeah, first let's define the prop type number item props. So the prop contains icon and then title. Sorry, title. So you have to receive the props here and giving it item props. So I am giving it the type navbar item props. So what it tells the compiler that the navbar item component receive props which is of the type navbar item props. So inside navbar item props we have two properties, icon and title. Icon is of type string and title is of type string. So there is no negotiation there. If you if I try to return some number value in title, it will throw an error. So yeah, the next thing, I'm just going to change this div as a fragment. Yeah, let's pass a div inside. So for this particular component, I'm going to create a CSS file separately. So I like to make it organized. So you can have all your CSS inside a single file and can import it and use it, but it's not a good practice. Always make sure you just create separate CSS file for separate components and use it there. Module.css. So I'm just putting it in the right side. So navbar item, inside we will be having we will be importing the icon first. So yeah, the for importing the icon, let's go to font awesome. Search the icon that you want. I just want a calendar here. You may see it just shows some bunch of icons here. Let's say I want this icon, and it just gives you the inlined element for that icon. So this is a element for that icon. Just copy this and then paste it here, provided if you included the CDN. If you not included the CDN in the base.css, then it won't work. So make sure you import the CDN and then copy this and use it in here. So the class name will be, so since I am like passing the icon here, so I'm going to get the icon and use it in here. This way it becomes more general. So if you in future, if I want to like uh, use some other icon, or like want a different icon for the second blue box that I have defined here, so I can do that. So by passing different icon title or some kind of stuff, you can like literally change this. So I'm not hard coding any values here, I'm just making it more general. So I'm just going to pass if So yeah, I want to have icon, and then I want to have a text in here. So the text will be the title variable which I'm going to pass to the component, right? So what this line does is I'm going to check this icon's length. So let's say I have specified icon, but I returned an empty string. So in that case, it will be like this will be an error. So there will be no icon showed in there. So I'm just uh, checking its length, and then if it's not its length is 0, it's not equal to 0, then return the icon as it is, or else you just return a default icon which is of this string. So I'm hard coding this value here. So yeah, let's define some CSS here. So I'm just going to have this gives class as, so I have not imported the class till now, so let's import classes from style slash model.css. So classes dot nav or item, and I want to specify some class properties in here too. So I'm going to like add classes dot, say icon, and for this p tag, for p tag also there is some styling. So classes dot, let's give it a name, nav or item title. So yeah, this is done. Let's go to our CSS. So the first property is navbar item, which is the outer div. So I have to define that background blue color and padding, all the stuff. So let's say we have a padding 0.2 rem, the width. Please verify the width from Figma. So if you click on that, you can see it in here. The width is 254 and the height is 52. So specify the width as it is. 54, and the height is, height 52. Yeah, I need a background color of, now we are going to use the primary color which we defined in the root. So by using this syntax, there is no need, like you have to define the color Xcode again and again. So it's like a kind of a hard task. You can use this method to like do this easily. So the border, there will be no border. Border none specifies that the particular HTML element should not have any borders. So next we have rounded corners there. So for achieving this, the property is border radius, and I'm going to give that a value 2 rem. So 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels. So yeah, I'm used to use rem values there. You can, if you want, you can also use pixels. There is no issues. So I'm going to use display flex, and the flex direction should be row, and the item should be aligned in the center. Let's say we should be having some gap between these two components, right? So I'm going to define a margin. This is called syntactical sugar. So what it does is margin. If I define it in this way, this is stands for margin top and right. So if I enter value 0.5 rem, this 0.5 rem will be for top, and this 0 value will be for right margin. So for this will be applied to the bottom and the left as well. So if you just define two values there, it for top it will take, top and bottom it will take 0.5 rem. For right and left it will take 0. If you want to specify like for all the four margins, so then you have to give for left you will be from bottom 5 rem 0.5 rem, for left there should be 0. So this will be look like this, bottom and left. So this is how the syntactical sugar for this applies for both padding also. So this is what I done here in padding. In border radius also you can apply this syntax. So yeah, if you want to like same margin values for all the sites, then you can just define a single value. Like let's say I want to have 0.5 rem of margin on all sides, then you just give a single value. It just takes this value on all sides. So for now we need some like this. Here's no need. So yeah, the next class is for icon. So font awesome icons are much smaller. If you want like some bigger icons and stuff, you should be changing it using this property. If you are using font awesome, then to change the size of it, you can use this font size 1.5 rem. They just give an inbuilt feature to change that. You can just add FA-2x or 3x. Based on that, it will change the size of the icon, but it's like of a constant value, and you can't go further 7x. So if you want like precise customization like 0.5 kind of values, then you use font size and specify its value, so it changes its size. So let's say we have some margin there, because I need some spacing between the icon and the text. So I'm just defining some margin, top 0 and bottom radius 1 rem. So yeah, the next class that I'm going to define is navbar item title for this particular HTML tag. So in this, let's say we need a font size of 1.2 rem and font weight of 600, and then we need that to be in the color of the secondary color which we defined before. So let's call that color here. Let's save these things, and also let's like define the layout for the home module so that we can see something going on here. So inside layout, so the width should be of 100 VW. What VW is viewport, so it just takes the width of the screen that your web app is loading. Let's say I'm using a mobile and accessing this web page. So the width of this at that time will be like 560 pixels depending upon the screen's width. So if I'm opening this same page in a desktop, then it will be like kind of around 1200 pixels, right? Then the width value will be like 1200 pixels. So it's just changes according to the device that you use. So width equal to 100 VW and height equal to 100 VH. This is also does the same thing, but in height aspects. So background color should be white, and then I'm going to use display flex. Very well you can use grids, but I'm very comfortable using flex. That's why I mostly use flex. If you are using grid, then it's appreciable and do it. Say we have a navbar, and I have the navbar's size to be of 20%, and navbar has some padding, so 4 rem, and yeah, on the top only. So the next thing is the background color of that thing is some light of gray. So let's copy this X value and paste it here. Since this is like a one-time color that is in your page, you don't need to create a variable for that. So you're going to use it in a single instance. So you can just call it directly. So I'm going to display flex and flex direction column. What it does is the direction of the component will be columnized. So the main component has flex property. So the children inside this flex element will be like arranged in a columnized manner. So you will be seeing this in a minute once I saved and run. So align items just aligns the properties in center based on the main axis. So we have saved it, and let's define some CSS for main area also. The width should be of 80 VW. Since we have used a 20% of your screen width, I'm going to use the rest as the main area. So I'm just defining 80 VW. If I use 80% in here, that will take, like, already there will be 80% remaining. It takes 80% from that 80%. So it will be like shorter than that area. So I'm using 80 VW. So display flex, and the flex direction will be row since we have 3 rows there. So, and I'm going to define the property called wrap. So what it does is it doesn't wrap the children if it like overflows. So it just shows as it is. Justify content, I'm putting it into the center. So yeah, we have defined it in index.tss. Where is this file? Yes. In index.tss we have to like import the data that we use, right? So we have to import this, and then we have to iterate it through to populate the data there. So the first thing I'm going to do is, let's import it. So since auto imports are here, so if you type it, it just shows a suggestion. So we are using the data from SAMP utils folder. So make sure you select the correct data, and then I'm going to use a function called map. So this thing iterates through your array object and then returns a value, returns a HTML element or a JavaScript functionality based on what you define. So I'm just returning navbar item. So for navbar item component, you define that it's going to get props, title, and icon, right? So these are the two props that I'm going to get. So here a temporary variable. So since it is like an array, if you map it, it will give you a object which is of type, let's say, if you map it for the first iteration, it gives you this complete object. So I have to handle it. So that's why I'm just having a simple variable here. So let's map this values to here. It shows suggestions. So title, for icon I need temp icon. Yes. Yeah. Once it is done, save it, and just let's go to the local host. Okay, it just goes outside of your screen. Yeah, we did something in CSS part. So I specified it as 2054 some stuff. So let's reduce it to 254. So yeah, still it's huge. So I am going to change this width into like some smaller value. Yeah, now it's perfect. And the color of this icon is also different. So let's say in this class, I'm just going to change the color. So color var secondary. So yeah, this is changed. So this is like, I can even return the same thing here like this. So let's say I have multiple navbar items here. So since this value is not present here, if you like write like this is like data code redundancies, right? You are like repeating the same stuff again and again, which is not efficient. So what I'm doing this is I'm just wrapping this single line into a map function and then iterating through an object and then passing this value to the specific component that I want to return multiple times and then rendering it on the screen. So yeah, let's say if I just want multiple components, then I will add data here. So I want values called tomorrow, later, same icons, but I'll just change the ID to 2 and 3, save it. Let's just refresh it and you can see it just iterated, populated here. So this is how you should populate data inside Next.js. So in React also, so make like the main concept of using React is kind of reducing the code and building reusable components. So once you get the UI, make sure you break down the UI as much components as possible. So break it down to every little components and then start creating the components and then importing it wherever you want. And then keep in mind that your component should be reusable. So this component is like used 3 times. That's why I defined it as a component. If it is a single thing that is going to appear at single time in your web page, then I probably won't define this as a component. So yeah, try to like identify the components in your design and then separate the components and then start designing. I think the time is up. So shall we continue for another 30 minutes, or if you want, or let's continue in the next session. Anyone? Do we want to continue or like for like let's say we till 7:30? It's 7 now. If you want, I can just finish some basic. We can like define the basic structure in the main areas. Okay, next session. So yeah. Okay. Okay, for now we have completed till this. In the next session we'll continue. Once we finished completely, we'll just I'll just upload this code in GitHub and just give the repo link to you. So yeah, any doubts here? So till now you have any doubts? I didn't touch any deep topics in React. I just teaching you some basic stuff. So till now you have any doubts or you can't follow, you have any kind of stuff like that? You have anyone? Okay, thank you guys. Have a good evening, good
Okay.
weekend.
Yeah, Sanjay.